So I'm really delighted to answer this question. One of the more salient metrics when dealing with nuclear waste is to evaluate how much energy you get as a function of the waste that's generated. To put it in perspective, since the 1970s, around 20% of all of the electricity from the United States has come from nuclear energy. And all of the spent fuel from all of that electricity would not fill up a single football field above 30 feet high. So it's not a lot of waste. It doesn't have a large footprint, and we can shield it. We can shield it so well that the dose rate outside of those is lower than naturally occurring radioactive material. That's entirely feasible, and these things are tested with incredibly rigorous standards by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in order for them to be legally used at all. And so the safety envelope is clearly there, but that doesn't mean that the public is okay with accepting that science and technology. In fact, that message really just hasn't gotten out there in terms of what are the real hazards in relation to other hazards that are substantially larger. And so when it comes to nuclear waste, we know how to deal with it, we know how to handle it, and we know how to dispose of it. My favorite example for how we can know that we can put this in geology that will allow it to stay there until it decays back into stables is the Oklo Gabon natural nuclear reactor that occurred in Gabon, Africa, where it was shown that the fission product stayed there, and the amount of diffusion and dispersion is readily measured, and we can learn from that how to improve on that to the extent that we want it. And even when you do that, the regulations that are required for a geological disposal facility are that in 10,000 years, the dose to a person, the worst case that could possibly happen, is still only a fraction of natural background. That's the worst case, and that's not even necessarily expected. And even if it was, it's extremely small. And so when you might say, that's horrible, we can't tolerate that. When you recognize the hazards that come from other waste forms, they're vastly greater. When you look at the impact, the environmental impact, the life impact, and the cost impact that you have, life cycle, for the entire life cycle. But it's easy to get really frightened and afraid of nuclear and to back off. And I understand that, but that's really where we are. It's really just an issue of this perception. So I hope that helps. It was a lot longer than I expected. Thanks for asking.